boys and girls. Welcome to class. The first thing we're gonna focus on today is science. I know. It's gonna be interesting as usual. So today we'll be working on assignment that deals with vertebrates and invertebrates. Do anyone know what a vertebrae and an invertebrate is? Okay. Well, that's why there's a we're going to look at the overhead at the screen so we can go over some important facts so you'll know the difference between a vertebrate and an invertebrate. Let's begin. So we all know that anytime we do a lesson, there's a title to our lesson. And with that title, we have standards. And those standards have to be age appropriate for the classroom. And the objective for this is that for this lesson, which is titled Comparing and Classifying Animals into Their Appropriate Animal Kingdom, the objective to that is that you guys will be able to write a comparative, informative research paper after we go over this information. And with any questions you guys may have, we can use that. It'll help. So don't be afraid to ask. So, as I stated, this is your title. Comparing and classifying animals into their appropriate animal kingdom. Then we have our standards. We have 1, 2, 3. One of the standards are draw evidence from literacy or information text to support, analyze, reflect, and research. The second standard is identify, research, and collect a data set on a topic, issue, problem, or question using age-appropriate technology. The third standard is classifying animals into major groups according to their physical characteristics and behavior. So when it says classifying them into their major groups, that's how we'll know which animal belongs where. So let's move forward so we can find out what a vertebrae and an invertebrate is. So here you have vertebrae, invertebrate. So no one still doesn't have an idea what a vertebrae or an invertebrate may be? Okay, that's fine. Okay, a vertebrae. Here are some vertebrates. Here you have a fish, mammals, amphibians, birds, and reptiles. These are the pictures of different vertebrate animals. Then you have invertebrates. You got worms, spiders, crabs, bugs, jellyfish, snail. So let's move forward to find out the characteristics of a vertebrate and an invertebrate are, and how when I said we're going to compare, that meaning we're going to find out what's the difference. We're going to compare them to each other. So a vertebrate has a backbone or a spinal column. An invertebrate without a backbone. But they have something in common. And you know what that is? They have a life cycle. And what I mean by life cycle, they give birth, they have growth, they have reproduction, and then they die. So they all do the same thing. They all do the same thing when it comes to the life cycle. And it has been, studies have shown that there are more invertebrate animals than vertebrate animals here on Earth.
Now we continue the class by giving some examples of types of vertebrates. The first one is a mammal. It's a warm-blooded vertebrate animal of a class that is distinguished by the possession of its hair and fur. Also referred to when the mother gives milk to their young ones. Finally, mammals are classified as animals that can give birth to live youngs. Reptiles. Reptiles is number 2. So reptiles is a vertebrate that includes snakes, lizards, crocodiles, turtles, and tortoises. They're usually distinguished by having dry, scaly skin, as sometimes we see some of the animals have. They typically lay soft shell eggs on land, so sometimes you find them on top of their eggs, and they're always mostly protecting their babies. The next one that we have is birds. So birds, they're a warm-blooded vertebrate. They do lay eggs just like a reptile. They are distinguished by having feathers, wings, and usually a beak. And the birds usually have the ability to fly as well. So that's how we can distinguish them differently. Amphibians. Amphibians are cold-blooded vertebrates. Now, typically they live in water, so they're aquatic. They depend on their gills to breathe, or also through their skin. They're classified as frogs, toads, newts, and salamanders. You see them a lot in lakes, typically when you can go with your family fishing. You'll see them around the lakes and stuff. The next one we have are fish. They're usually a limbless, cold-blooded vertebrate animal that has gills in order to breathe, and they live solely in water. So you could only find them in oceans and lakes and different types of rivers. The next one we have are arthropods. This is now an example of an invertebrate. These types of animals have no internal spines, and the body is usually joined by segments and a hard covered like a shell. So we have different types of invertebrates that you can find, and maybe you've seen them in person or not. So these are some examples of the different classifications of vertebrates, and you can find them in the 5 categories that we've listed previously throughout our lesson.
Okay, everyone, now that we have gone over the classifications and the different writing assignment that we're going to do, we are going to start identifying and classifying the different vertebrates and invertebrates along with their animal kingdoms. Is everybody ready?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Lorenzo, can you tell me what a vertebrate is?
A vertebrate is an animal that has a backbone.
Perfect. Can you show me which ticket it is that you would put?
This one.
Okay, perfect. Now, Chase, can you show me what an invertebrate, or first, can you tell me what an invertebrate is?
Animals that do not have backbones.
Perfect. Can you put that in the column? Okay, now that we have these, now that you've done that and you know the differences, let's see if you can show me with the cards. A fish, where would it go, Emma?
Vertebrate.
Why?
Because it has a backbone.
Correct. What's this one? Alegra? What is it?
This one?
It's a dog. That's right. It's a vertebrate because it has a backbone. How about this one, Chase?
Vertebrate?
A squid?
No.
An invertebrate? Okay, good job. How about an alligator, Lorenzo?
It's a vertebrate.
Very good. How about we mix it up and try to get some invertebrates? What do you think? Can you find another one?
Spider.
A spider, good job.
Doesn't have a backbone.
It does not have a backbone.
Starfish.
And a starfish, very good. Okay, so let's move on, okay? Let's move on a little bit from this one. So now we're going to identify the different animal kingdoms. Can someone tell me the difference between, or tell me how you identify the bird?
It has feathers. It's covered in feathers.
Covered in feathers, very good. How about a reptile? Anyone else?
It has scales.
It has scales, very good. How about an amphibian?
It lives in water and land.
It lives in water and land, very good. How about a mammal?
We are mammals
We are mammals, why?
because we have hair.
Because we're covered in fur. And we give
Bird.
live birth. Very good. And how about fish?
They swim.
They
They
swim
get
in the
oxygen
water.
From water.
And they get their oxygen from water. Very good. So now we have some other cards identifying which animal kingdom. Emma, can you tell me where the salamander would go?
Amphibians.
Amphibians. Very good. Chase, how about the goldfinch?
Bird.
Very good. How about the fish, the discus fish? Lorenzo? Fish. Very good.
Other than the snake.
How about the caecilian? What do you guys think that is?
Reptile.
It looks more like a reptile. Good job. Although it does look like it's on land and water.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I think it might be an amphibian because those are one of those. Yeah.
You think so? Well, that's pretty interesting. Let's look it up in a little bit. How about a sea turtle?
Reptile.
A reptile. Very good. And how about a crow?
Bird.
A bird. How about a cat?
Never.
Very good. Now, do you guys also see a pattern here? Who can tell me something that they can notice that would make it a little easier to identify the types of animals we have? Yes, Rania.
The color.
The color of what?
The card.
The color of the card. Each card is a different color and it represents a different animal kingdom. Perfect. So now that we know how to classify, I'm going to let you guys continue classifying. But now that we know how to classify the groups of animals and that we know what a vertebrate and an invertebrate is, we can move on in our lesson. Good job, guys. Thank you.
Yay.
All right, boys and girls, for the last part of your lesson, you're going to write an essay on what you learned about vertebrates and invertebrates. So for the last assignment you have about vertebrates and invertebrates, you're going to write a paper about what you learned in the lesson about vertebrates and invertebrates. The topic of your paper is going to be about the differences in the classifications of vertebrates and invertebrates. Before you start your paper, you should brainstorm. I've added a couple questions so that you can think about them and try to answer them in your writing. In your writing, you're going to try to answer as many of these questions as possible. What is a vertebrate? Define it. What is an invertebrate? Define it. What kinds of animals are vertebrates? Why are they vertebrates? What makes them a vertebrate? What kinds of animals are invertebrates? Why are they invertebrates? What makes them an invertebrate? Think about mammals, reptiles, birds, amphibians, fish, and arthropods, all that we learned in our lesson. Are these animals vertebrates or invertebrates? How are they alike and how are they different? I want you all to first think about your lesson. Think about what you learned in your lesson and brainstorm. If you would like, you may use the computers to research more about what animals you would like to discuss and what category they would belong to. As you research and brainstorm, write down key facts about these animals and why they would belong to either category, as you're going to need to support this in your writing. I'm going to go over the structure of your paper. Like any good 5-paragraph paper, you should start your essay with an introductory paragraph. This paragraph will state the main ideas you are speaking about in your report. This paragraph should be 3 to 5 sentences on key topics in your writing. Then, I want you to write at least 3 paragraphs with at least 3 to 6 sentences that clearly state your definitions, classifications, and give at least 3 supporting statements for your classifications of these animals. Remember that each paragraph should cover at least one topic. Finally, make sure you end your paper with a conclusion paragraph that summarizes the main idea of your paper. I've included a paper outline. This is a general outline of what your paper should look like and what you should have in your paper. You have an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and 1 conclusion paragraph. Let's get started. Are you ready to begin? Do you have any more questions?